Time to look at some freelance translation myths coming up. Hello and welcome back to the Freelanceverse. Thanks for coming back to the channel once again. Today it's time to bust some freelance translator myths. Some things I have heard around in the industry from other people that are not in the industry. Just some conceptions that I think are not true, so let's talk about them. I have 5 prepared here. Number 1, only working with direct clients is worth it. That is a myth, a misconception, definitely. It is considered, always considered like the holy grail to work with direct clients, which is of course great because you can make more money. Technically, let's say, I'm not saying you can make more money, I'm saying you can charge more, but it also comes with a lot of hassle, a lot of non-paid work like marketing, negotiation, admin tasks, quality assurance when they have a complaint that comes to you as well. All these are things that are done by the agency if you work with agencies. And I have some very great agency clients that I would not want to miss. There are agencies out there that are either specialized in a certain niche, very boutique agencies, agencies that really value their freelancers, they pay them well, that represent them to the direct clients as well. It does exist to the end clients, sorry, not direct clients. It does exist, it's hard to find, but it definitely comes by once in a while. So this is a myth. It's not true that you only have to work with direct clients to make it. Not true. I really like working with my agencies. At the moment, it's actually more agencies that I work with again, since I reduced my workload a bit because they're more dependable, right? You can really, I get jobs by them every day. Just they come in, I work. It's more like almost like factory work, you know, in a way, because you don't have to go out and get the jobs. Which in this point in my life I appreciate because I just want to get my work done and dusted. So definitely a myth that is not true. Myth number 2, your rates are your salary. Not true at all, right? So your rates dictate what you make per month as revenue, not as salary, not as income. So if you translate 1,000 words for 14 cents per word, you're making 140 euros revenue and not income. So your rates don't depend on your salary. So, and even then, like, you might feel like people judge you for the rates that you charge, but your rates depend on your language combination, depends on where you're from, depends on a lot of factors, and maybe you're super fast, right? It doesn't mean that with a low rate you cannot make a lot of money. Maybe you figured out the system that you're very fast and you can just churn out translations here and there and people are happy still. So your rate, your per word rates do not define your salary at all. That it all depends on the environment. So don't get sucked into like a certain amount that you need to charge, otherwise you're not enough. Count for yourself, count your working speed, count what you need to live, where you live, and then calculate your revenue. And from that, from these 140 euros from a 1,000 word job for 14 cents, you probably need to give away like 50% to the state for taxes, social security, your overhead costs, etc. So keep that in mind. Myth number 3, all you do is translating. Isn't that boring? You just work on a text, you translate from this language to the other. Couldn't be further from the truth. That is maybe 25-30% of what I'm doing on a daily basis. The job includes so much more. We often just call ourselves translators, but there is so much more that comes with it. So that's definitely a myth. And I recently had a conversation about that, and the person said, don't you get bored? Like, does it fulfill you? Does it give you enough? And I had to kind of explain to him that this is way more than simply translating all day. It's my own business. It's what I built from the ground up. I have my clients. I have a very deep connection with certain clients that really rely on me as the language expert in their business and within the workflow. I do so many more services than just translation, and some people do just translation and love it, right? So even there, don't feel bad if you are the person that does just translation. As long as you enjoy it, as long as you love it, go for it. For me, it's definitely a myth though. Myth number 4, translation is not really necessary anymore. Today, everyone speaks English. A crazy myth that couldn't be further from the truth, even though, let's look at the face value. Not everyone speaks English, by far not, right? In countries, let's say Western Europe, it's very common that people speak English, but even there, you have an older population. You have a population that is plus 50, let's say, that is maybe not so versed in English yet. and would be very like turned off by an advertisement in English. I see it sometimes with my parents, because certain brands do now advertise in English in Swiss television, like just to be like fancy and to be a high value and stuff. And I see that my parents do not appreciate that at all, right? Because if you don't understand anything, you will not convert, you will not buy it. And there are plenty of studies that show that highly localized, not even just translation, but highly localized advertisements make it much more likely that the client receives it well and will convert. So it is definitely needed, even more needed now in a very globalized world. People come back to their roots, come back to local things. If something is written specifically for you, you're much more likely to respond to it positively. And then we have the whole other aspect that the biggest part of the world is not as fluent in English as you might think, right? What you see in the media is in the end just a relatively small amount of people on the whole planet. So that should not persuade you or take the value of localization away, because in most continents, in most countries, it's still very much needed. And the last myth, tools like machine translation and AI is better at translating than humans. This is the number one myth I hear every day. No, not every day, but whenever I go out into the public and talk to real people and I say what I do professionally, one of the first questions is, so how is that now with AI and stuff? And they are kind of surprised when I say, you know what, not much has changed for me in my workflow. I know I'm very transparent to my client. I know when to use which tools. I tell them when to use which tools. So it creates trust. They trust when I say that it's perfectly fine to use MT or AI, perfectly fine to go for it. And I also educate them what to use and not just simply run all their copy through a free ChatGPT tool. So it's part of my, let's say, part of my package or my negotiation to talk about the tools, but in my daily life I actually use them relatively sparsely, right? So it's not much has changed, because I work in an industry that is heavily relying on terminology, on flow of language, on marketing copy that is specific for a certain amount, for a certain target. And it's just customary there to rely on human translation. Also, my client luckily are, they also value, like on a meta basis, they value human work over AI work. So of course it is, I don't know how long this is going to be like that, but for now it is definitely not the case that AI is translating better than humans. At least not than me, maybe as better than the majority of the population. That's why lay people will think, oh, this is actually really good. But then when I have to do a review of a previously machine translated content for my specialization, there's so much to change. Of course, not the individual sentence structure. I don't have to change because that's the easy part, right? But the reading flow, the target, the tone of voice, the register, the terminology, that's the main part, right? The cultural awareness and the terminology of your specialization is the main part where you can excel. And it often happens that I tell them, look, I can do it, but it's going to take the same amount of time. I might as well translate it, and you have a better text for the same price. And often that's what happens in the end. There you go, 5 myths busted from my everyday life. I hope this was useful for you guys. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'm making a video every week about languages, freelancing, self-employment, translation, etc. And I see you next Monday with the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.